Hello, Indy.
Hello, could you still hear me?
I can still hear you. We're good. We're good. So welcome to a very soggy, mossy dell in the heart of the National Autistic Society Garden at the Chelsea Flower Show.
Fantastic. I know it's obviously a bit tricky for you trying to do it with one hand on an umbrella, but
I've got an umbrella. I've got the iPad stand. I'm battling the rain. We've all been battling the rain the last few days, but actually, I'm loving the rain because the moss is very happy.
yeah. Oh, brilliant, fantastic. Well, do you want to take us for a bit of a tour around the garden then, so we can see what it's like, and then tell us about whatever you want to
Yeah.
tell us about?
I'm doing this backwards really because I should start in the outer garden first. Let me head that way. So this garden is here because the National Autistic Society wanted to use the Chelsea Flower Show to talk about autistic masking. Now, not all autistic people mask, but for those that do, it's the process by which they might hide or suppress certain autistic characteristics, or they might mimic so-called neurotypical behaviour in order to better fit in. So this really is a garden of two halves, and I've brought you out to Main Avenue to show you these incredibly bright drifts of primulas surrounding the terrace here at the front of the garden. You can see some more the other side, the pinks and the reds of the miller's crimson. And the outer garden, which comprises this bit we're in now and a section around the corner with some beautiful camassias grown by Stella at Hairspring Cottage Plants. And those two areas form a sort of a forward-facing area of the garden. They back onto Main Avenue. You can see the crowds here, and this bright colour and kind of bold drifts are sort of saying, "Hello, world, here I am." Very beautiful, very striking and eye-catching, but not really representative of the inner self of the heart of the garden. And I'll walk you back through that way in a minute. And before I do that, I'm going to wander down to this terrace here where you can see some lovely architects behind me having a drink. Um, we have masked the garden with these huge cork walls. Now I'm going to struggle a little bit with the umbrella here, but I wanted to bring you up close to one of these blocks. And this is a material that I think most people won't know and won't have come across before. You might know cork as something that perhaps you've got a coaster or a table mat in your house made of what is in fact agglomerated cork. A very different product to this. So agglomerated cork is bound with a polyurethane glue. It's not really a very natural material for something that often markets itself as such. But this glue, I'm going to ask someone next to me, Gavin, could you kindly hold my umbrella for 1 second? I want to point at the cork. Um, this cork is bound with the plant's own resin. So the black surface that you can see here is something called suberin. Suberin is the natural resin in the cork oak tree. And I'm going to show you a section of bark, my Blue Peter moment. Here, when wine stoppers are made from this bark as it's taken off the tree, as you can imagine, those circles are punched out. You have a lot of waste. All that waste, I have some here, is granulated, and all these waste granules are put into a giant pressure cooker, and these huge blocks are the result of that process. So they're cooked in their own juices, the natural resin sets in, and so there's nothing artificial in there. It's a pure plant-based product. Thanks, Gavin. And means that at the end of its natural life cycle, the cork can be returned to the biosphere. So it can be used as a soil conditioner or a mulch. There's nothing in there, nothing toxic, nothing like a polyurethane glue that means the material can't be recovered at the end of its life. So that is something I would show there. There's the other section of the outer garden here. Can you see those drifts of camassias
Yeah.
forming the final border? And now I'll take you on a bit of a journey and then through the willow trees here. And we're going to walk up through through the route, the main boardwalk route through the garden that channels you between some more of these cork walls. I'm going to come through the beautiful red stemmed cornice here. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
I'm certainly trying to learn some camera skills this week. And here you can see we've got one little cork wall here, and the big one we were just standing behind me, and they frame this little gateway. If I stand to the side, where the path drops between these walls into the heart of the garden, into the inner dell. Now there are lots of material treatments or plants that vary between the inner and the outer space. So I've shown you the red stemmed cornice in the outer garden. Beautiful red stems, very very showy, very eye-catching. But right next to it here, you see this lovely native Cornice sanguinea,
Yeah.
much more understated. These very lovely white flowers. I don't know if you can quite see those. This has actually been covered in common blue butterflies since the day it went in. Yeah, perhaps not the sort of showy plant that the Chelsea Flower Show might ordinarily be showcasing, but something certainly beloved by the wildlife, and actually part of the colour palette of the dell, which I keep joking to everyone, we've made the Chelsea Foliage Show in here rather than the Chelsea Flower Show. So there are lots of greens, there's lots of interesting texture. It's a much calmer, subtler palette. But aside from that, there's actually a lot going on in the dell. So from a planting point of view, there's incredible complexity. There are a huge variety of plants in this inner space, and then the outer area only has a small subset of that. So you get something like the primulas, there's one or two sprinkled through the dell here, and that's kind of supersized out front. But in this space, they form part of a much more complicated planting palette. We're trying to say really that there's more behind the mask than might meet the eye, that it's worth exploring the idea of masking and getting to know the autistic person behind the mask.
Yeah, oh, fantastic. And so what was the sort of reason behind the big pop of colour then with the primulas? Because they are fantastic.
Yeah, they've certainly been catching the eye of visitors. And it's interesting, I think a lot of people come down Main Avenue, spot those and think, oh, they're quite nice. But it's a simple drift, they get no further, and they don't necessarily pop down the side of Main Avenue here to see the dell beyond. And I think that really is telling the story of the masking, that a lot of people see the front that is portrayed to the world by the autistic person, and they don't understand that comes at a cost. Masking is a very neurologically intensive process. We've got in the heart of the dell here, I'm trying to turn the camera around, it's very difficult to hold the umbrella at the same time. You can see these incredible mossy rocks here, which have come from a site in Windsor that was dynamited in the 1930s. And the reason for the inclusion of those here in the dell is sort of referencing that they're like echoes of past wars, that some autistic people find that in a very overwhelming situation, they might have what is called a meltdown or shutdown in response to that overwhelming situation. So we're trying to say, look beyond those bold drifts of colour at the front, come round to the heart of the dell, and begin to understand the efforts that these people are putting in, and I guess, as in everything in life, if we're all a little kinder to each other and try to understand the world from someone else's point of view, life gets better for everybody.
Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. And this is your first garden, is it at Chelsea?
It is, yeah. We just waltzed into Main Avenue and demanded to pick a spot. Yeah, it's been an incredible opportunity. We're very grateful to the RHS and to Project Giving Back, who sponsored the garden, for giving us this opportunity. It's been wonderful to work with Dido, the architects at CSK. This garden has been a true collaboration between those two disciplines, and we've come up, I think, with a design that is much stronger as a result of that collaboration. Each very happy to push back on the other's ideas and and to test everything, to really question everything.
Yeah, brilliant. And is the garden going to have a life after Chelsea? Is it going anywhere or?
It is, and in fact, it's quite handy that I've just moved the camera around because you can see these cup and ring marks engraved on the timber behind me. I've
Yeah,
spent many hours engraving cup and ring marks on scaffold boards and timber. Um, they are a reference to the garden's relocation site. Well, one of it's going to various places. Um, it is going to a National Autistic Society supported living site in Ayrshire in Scotland. And it will there when it's there, it will be used by staff, by residents for whom the centre is home, and also rather in a rather lovely way, it's on a public footpath, so members of the public will be able to come and enjoy the garden too. And about a mile down the river, there's the most incredible prehistoric carvings discovered in the 1980s that look a little bit like this. They were behind a sheet of vegetation on a sandstone cliff face, and I had a wonderful afternoon clambering through the vegetation trying to find them. And I really wanted to include something in the garden that was a reference to the relocation site, although that's obviously influenced the planting palette and various other factors as well, in terms of choice of hard materials.
yeah, brilliant. And in terms of the plants, then, who produced the plants for you? Presumably, you had a relationship with the nursery to help support you.
Yeah, we had so our main grower. So I'm going to swap hands again. This is getting quite heavy. Our main grower was a chap called Dave Root at Kelway's Nursery in Langport in Somerset. He's produced some really beautiful things. I don't know if you can see behind me this just gorgeous Natuzia fern, one of my favourites. And actually, Dave's a big fan of ferns as well, so I think he quite enjoyed the grow on this one. So he's produced most of the herbaceous perennials, but he's also grown on things from other smaller nurseries. I think here in Britain, we're really lucky to have some incredible, tiny, and very specialist, wonderful nurseries. So Kevet in Scotland, Edinburgh, they've grown some things for us. We've got some amazing perennial edibles, some of which have come from a company called Incredible Vegetables. People might know,
Yeah.
specialise in that sort of thing. And then on the shrub side, I'm going to take you over here because this is something that people might not know, and is really rather special. This is a Japanese plum yew. So for various reasons, we had to make sure that everything in the garden was not toxic, and that took me down the most wonderful route of turning into something of a bit of an edible garden. It wasn't necessarily planned as such originally, but I do like an edible planting palette. This is looks like taxus. You can see it's kind of providing some wonderful evergreen structure in the garden, but instead of being poisonous, it has edible plums, kind of the size of, hang on, just hold my hand up, probably about that long, and very, very delicious. I've yet to eat one, but I did when we ordered the plants for the show. I did say, could you bring 3 more over? And I'm going to buy some for my own garden after today. That's definitely a take home from Chelsea for me.
Well, I was looking at your plant list, and you've got a couple of my favourite plants on there as well. You've got
Oh yeah, what do
Disporum
you like?
longistylum, night heron.
Oh yes, there's one behind me here. Can you see just to the side of the betula?
Yeah.
Don't know where I'm pointing, down there somewhere. There's a few of those. In fact, there's a whopping great one. I move the. Hang on, where am I pointing? I move the camera. Can you see just there?
Yeah.
That is one absolute huge Disporum that came from Dave. Yeah, he did most of the perennials. Most of the shrubs have come from a lovely man called Michael Buck at Creepers Nursery. He's a brilliant grower as well. So things like this lovely hornbeam hedging.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take you into the third part of the garden now that we've not seen yet. Through you see the sea of Camasias behind me,
Yeah.
and the crowds. And here we've got the very clipped, formal hornbeam hedging in the outer garden, and then you can see behind me the very loose version in the inner garden. So again, one of the many examples of things that are different between inner and outer to give two different characters to those two spaces.
And sustainability is quite a big thing, isn't it, at Chelsea this year? I mean, it has been for quite some time. So, what's the sort of, particularly with the cork, because I'm not sure if we grow it in this country. Has it come from Spain or where's it come from?
It's come from Portugal. I'm going to pop you off the wall here so I can
Yep.
get out of the rain. And then you can see it up close behind me.
Yep.
And yeah, there's one big company in the world, Amarin, who produce most of the cork that is used across the world. And this certainly has come from them. Cork is an incredible material to make, not just for the plant-based, 100% plant-based reasons that I explained earlier, but when you harvest the bark of the cork, which it is enshrined in Spanish law, you can only do once every 9 years, kind of a maximum. It means that that carbon that is sequestered in the cork, you're sort of locking away in the material that you're using. But of course, you're leaving the tree behind to carry on growing. So if you harvest the cork over the course of its lifetime, which is maybe 250 to 300 years, that tree will sequester 3 to 5 times more carbon than if you don't harvest it.
Wow.
Which means it's just unusual, isn't it, to find a material that by using more of the material, you're kind of boosting your carbon sequestration,
Yeah.
which is great.
Wow, that's fascinating. And so, those particular trees, are they going to be tender in the UK, or is that something that we could perhaps incorporate? Because obviously we're going through a bit of a changing climate, aren't we, in this country as well?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think you'll see it starting to grow here more. Certainly, Dido and Matt, the architects I'm working with, have a cork oak in their garden in Eton. I have been speaking with a furniture producer down in Hampshire who works with a charity called the Woodland Heritage. They're about to embark on a project planting quite a lot of cork oak in the south of Britain, because I think we'll just find that as the climate shifts, it's going to survive, and it's a timber project that we could start to grow in this country.
Yeah, brilliant. That sounds fantastic. And I mean, it's great to hear that the gardens are going to actual locations where people will be able to enjoy them long term. And one thing I'm trying to do at the moment is I mean, I love visiting gardens around the country, but it's always very tricky depending on which membership you've got, whether it's RHS, National Trust, and so forth. So I've created myself a little map to help me find my way around the country. And I'm going to make that available to our Tender Shoots members as well. And what I was wondering was, is there anything that exists at the moment which shows the list of locations where Chelsea Flower Show Gardens have ended up? Because it'd be great for me to be able to put a little map together to say, right, here's the list of gardens and where they are around the country, and this is where Sophie's is up north, so you can go and visit them. Does anything like that exist, or could I just create it?
I don't know that it exists for all RHS gardens, but certainly Project Giving Back, who has sponsored, I mean, nearly all the Main Avenue Show gardens are sponsored by them this year, which is fantastic. They've really done an amazing job in changing the nature of Chelsea, actually, and bringing the charities to become the kind of focus of some of the gardens, giving them a platform. Now, I do know they have a map on their website, so it's worth heading there to Project Giving Back and having a look. And a number of them, are open to the public or have open days throughout the year. So you can go along and see those legacy gardens.
Brilliant, fantastic. And how's it been meeting the TV celebrities and,
Well, I'm probably the wrong person to ask. I spent much of press day not knowing who anybody was. But there have been a few special people who have come to the garden that have made my week, really. We had Chris Packham on the garden on press day morning, who was just wonderful, spent a great deal of time in the garden. It was lovely to show him, so I'm going to show you now, this very rare, am I pointing in the right direction? Just down here, I don't know if you can see these tiny little plants down in here, and that's an incredibly rare fen violet, Viola stagnina. It's got slightly more pointed leaves than some, and that and another very rare sticky catchfly at the top of the steps, or I'll take you up the steps if that's a nice view. Those have been grown by a chap called Andrew Shaw, of the rare British plant nursery. I'm going to turn this camera on. You can see the stepping stone path here at the back of the garden. Andrew Shaw does a lot of work with people like Natural England, repopulating. You get a sense of the depth of the garden. It's something that I don't think the cameras can pick up on the BBC. I don't know if I'm going to do any better job, but we're about a metre up here from the level of the outside of the garden, and then in the middle we're almost about a metre down. So there's an incredible height change in the space. But I was telling you about Andrew Shaw. He does a lot of work with Natural England, growing on species that are nearly extinct. That fen violet only lives in 2 places in the whole world, one in Huntingdon and one in Oxfordshire. Actually, I lie, it now lives in this dell, so that's 3 places. But it's come here on its holidays, and will be part of restoration work, releasing it back into the wild when Chelsea is done.
Brilliant, fantastic. I mean, it sounds like you've done a fantastic job there, particularly for the first time that you've featured at Chelsea, and with it being one of the main show gardens as well. So the voting for the best show gardens opens tonight, I think. I've already had a look on the website, but I can't seem to see an option for it.
I think it is tonight.
Yeah.
And unlike Strictly Come Dancing, you only get 1 vote. So you have to choose it wisely. Now, of course, I'm going to say this, but it would be fantastic if people could vote for this garden. It would mean the world, not just to Dido and I, who've had a very lovely time working on this project, but to I was going to say hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people who are supported by the Natural. I am very tired. The National Autistic Society across the world. If you look on their website, you'll see some stats about how many people in this country are autistic or have friends and family who are autistic, and it runs into the millions. It's one of those things that hasn't hit the headlines until recently. I think people are beginning to become aware of the extent of it, and it would be wonderful if we could use this opportunity to raise awareness of the work of the National Autistic Society and of their a way of helping them in their support of autistic people and their families.
Brilliant, fantastic. Well, I'm sure we'll get a lot of votes. I've put all the details and the links on our website so people can go there directly, and hopefully from 7:30 onwards people can start voting. So fingers crossed, I think, for all of us.
That's wonderful. Well, if we manage some reception at 7:30 when you've got your meeting scheduled, I will dial back in and I will answer any questions people have. It's a very weird thing, a show garden. I'm finding it difficult not to invite everyone who's here to come on the garden. Gardens are to be enjoyed, aren't they? And the show garden, it's lovely to look at it, but really taking this journey of walking through the space is something else. So yeah, if I could have shared this tiny little snippet with you, that's lovely.
Brilliant, fantastic. Thanks very much, Sophie. Right, I'm going to stop recording